Today's video is a little bit different as I'm in the middle of an emergency. So yes, you join me in the middle of a bit of an emergency job with water absolutely everywhere. But to get to where I am now, let me take you back a couple of days ago and I'll explain how it all started. So one thing I've noticed since I've lived here, which is coming up to 2 years now, is the edge of the lawn here along the patio has always been really nice and green, which over the summer still surprised me, and I thought there may be some residual water underneath the patio that was keeping this green. But when I cut the grass the other day, I came across one area that was absolutely soaking wet, and at that point we hadn't had rain for a number of days, so that started sort of ringing alarm bells. So I dug up a square foot of grass here, and surprise surprise, in the next 10 minutes that filled up to surface level with water, and you could see it coming out of underneath the paving. So I took out some paving slabs here and it came out a bit further, and I took out some more, and this is all the sand and cement underneath. And now I've got to the point where all these paving slabs I've taken out and I've dug a big hole, and under there you can actually see flowing water. Let me just show you. So I don't know if you can see that actually moving on the surface, but water is coming in a fair rate of knots. Let's have another look. So just to make sure that I don't get completely overwhelmed, I've set up a sump pump that's got a float and a 1.5 inch lay flat pipe that goes out to the paddock. And after lots of digging, I've come across a black plastic water pipe that's crossing in this direction, just about at the bottom of that bucket there. That's got a split in it, and the water is absolutely coming out at a rate of knots, and this at the moment fills up about every 15-20 minutes, and the pump is just kicking in for 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever, just to clear it so I don't get overwhelmed. But what's interesting is I don't have any pipe work in this area. The pipe work for my house comes from the drive and goes into the house. So I have no mains in this area at all, and when I turn off the stopcock, which is next to the meter, this is still running. So what it looks like to me is that I've got a mains pipe that may be coming from underneath the fence from next door, coming underneath here, serving who knows where, maybe the outbuildings, which is sort of in this line, but is still fully charged and absolutely nothing to do with me. And my neighbours aren't around at the moment, so I can't even go and ask them to turn the water off just to confirm it. All I can do for the next few days is really just let it run and make sure that I'm not overwhelmed. You may be wondering why I've got a sump pump in a bucket. Well, although this is a dirty water pump, which means in theory it can take stones and particles going through it, I found it tends to stall the motor if large debris goes through it. So I've put it in a bucket that I've drilled holes in and surrounded it with a mesh to act as a filter. So there you go, the pump's kicked in, the pipe is filling up, and obviously 10 metres away it's just discharging into the paddock there. So somewhere down there, oh, you can see, look at the water coming in there. So what you've just seen was a couple of days ago, and I've had to leave it for a couple of days just because of other commitments. And I've talked to the water authority, and they confirm that because it's beyond what they think is the stopcock and the meter, it's nothing to do with them, and I should call a plumber. So rather than doing that, I thought before I call a plumber, I'll see where this goes, and either I can fix it myself, or at least it will help if I get a plumber in. So I think it's time to extend this hole so I've got a little bit of slack so I can actually see what the problem is.
when we wake.
One advantage of doing regular DIY is that in time you tend to have the right tools to tackle any problems around the house. So having a cheap SDS drill like this at hand comes in really useful when you need it for a job like this.
We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking.
This is also one of the few times that I actually appreciate that whoever laid the Indian sandstone paving here on just 2 inches of mortar straight onto the earth with no subbase does mean at least that it's a lot easier to dig out. You know, there's always a silver lining.
You and I, we got it. We don't need no more.
I rigged up the float switch to be on all the time to keep the water as low as possible so I can track back along the pipe to see where it goes.
Ah, now that is interesting. What the heck is that? Ha. So it looks like there's been a split in this pipe before, and this looks spookily like gaffer tape with some sort of joint there. So although I don't think the leak is coming out from underneath this gaffer tape, obviously this pipe has been a problem in the past and someone has fixed it with some sort of bodge. It looks like a Jubilee clip around a piece of rubber and then the gaffer tape around that. And the split is actually next to it, so it's obviously a dodgy piece of pipe. Now that I wasn't expecting. So, in fact, that looks like good news because I was really worried about this black pipe, but it looks like someone's made a, oh look, there's some drainage pipe underneath there as well. I reckon when they put that drainage pipe in, they dug through the pipe. That's why it's broken, and that's why they've had to put a joint on it. But it's good news because it looks like they've used some plastic blue pipe, which is like the modern blue pipe, which is something that works with all the fittings that we can buy these days. It's worrying me a little bit about trying to join onto a black pipe, just because it might not be the same sort of fittings. So I've got the black pipe connected with a really rubbish joint onto about 300 or 400 mil of blue, that looks like 25 mil pipe, going onto a coupling that then goes into maybe a 20 mil black pipe on this side. And this looks like it's leaking a little bit, but the split is actually over there. So that is really good news. That means I can connect onto that glue with confidence, and it means I can use my pipe clamp on the blue clamp with confidence, so I know I'm not going to split it, to hopefully get this water turned off.
For these types of pipes, it's possible to stop the flow by using a pipe clamp that hooks around the pipe and then squashes it until the water stops flowing. These clamps, however, can damage some pipes and cause a split depending on the type of pipe and its age and fragility. That's why it's excellent to see some relatively new MDPE or medium density polyethylene pipe, the blue stuff, that I can clamp onto knowing that this will withstand damage from the clamp compared to the older, less durable pipes. Even with the pipe under pressure, it's pretty easy to squeeze it tight to stop the flow of water.
Well, hey, that, I think, means it's stopped. So that is good news. I finally got it turned off, but I have got a really small leak coming out of that coupling they've used for the repair.
Now hopefully that's something that I can just stop by tightening it up. But I always worry about tightening up joints like this, just in case they suddenly, if that goes, I've got a real problem. Yeah, that is definitely running from that joint. Right, let's see if I can tighten the thing up. Remind me that I need to go and buy a proper size wrench. Excellent. Now that is very good news. It doesn't look like it's running anymore. Now I should be able to find that original split caused all the problems. If I turn the water back on a touch, you'll be able to see. Let's have a look. Let's just crack this open. Ah, it's there. So it's away from the old split, look. And that was the original problem. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a valve on it. I've already got a 25mm blue valve that fits this, just by luck more than anything. I'm not going to cap it off. I think I'll put a valve on it and then I'll see what I can do with it after that. Well, there you go. So that is the original repair that someone did a few years ago, and it is actually a Jubilee clip, or should I say 2 Jubilee clips connected together, but it's held, so much for duct tape. We'll have a look at that in a minute. So whenever you're using blue pipe like this, it's always important to put one of these inserts in before connecting any valves or bends or any sort of junctions at all. It stiffens the pipe up and it gives it extra rigidity, so the gasket on the fitting can clamp against the pipe really well. So these are really important, and they're only pennies. So that's good, it's definitely a 25mm anyway.
Although I like to tighten these type of fittings with a pipe wrench, they do say you can just hand tighten them. And in this instance, I'm going to try that because I don't have a great deal of room. And if it doesn't work, I can just do it again.
So let's see if that is strong enough. That's looking pretty good. They always say that you can do these things up by hand. I never quite believe them, but that seems to have worked and seems to be tight enough. Check a little bit for leaks. There's nothing on the existing. I can't see anything on the new. So for now, that looks like there's no leaks either on the existing, which I've just tightened up, or the new valve that I've just put on. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it a day or two. There's no rush to fill this hole. And also I want the hole really to dry out before I put material in. I don't want really wet, sloppy material here and then start trying to compact it. It's just going to be mush. So I'm going to leave this open for a couple of days, let this dry out, and then also double check for leaks. If there is any leaks, I'm just going to have to get the wrench and give it a quick tighten up. But for now, I think that's done. Let's go and have a look at this. So just opening that valve fully off camera, the pressure is there, but the flow isn't very good. So I think it's coming through a smaller pipe and then ending up in a 25mm pipe, but really it hasn't got a huge flow. However, this bodged sort of repair had to sit under maybe 3 or 4 bar for the last few years. So that's why I'm interested just taking it apart. So let's just have a look to see how someone's fixed it. Plan B. That did the job. You are joking. So it would appear that the repair is putting the blue pipe inside of the black, just luckily, because it's the right internal diameter for the external diameter of the blue. That's what it looks like so far. And then connecting them together with duct tape and then just putting a couple of Jubilee clips on for good measure. Look at that, look. Yeah, so the blue has been forced into the black. Luckily, the blue external diameter is pretty close, or maybe just a touch bigger than the black internal diameter, so they managed to force it in. That is rubber. It's actually melting. There's my mark there. So it's in maybe about 3 inches, 75mm. And this is actually starting to melt when I cut through it. So this is like a rubberized pipe. So that's a few years old, I think. That's not something that I'd like to play with too much. But to be fair to the person that did the bodge repair, this section didn't actually fail. It was a leak a little bit further along just because the pipe's getting old, and rubber means it's been in the ground for an awful long time. So it's amazing what you can do if you've got 2 pipes the same internal and external diameter and a couple of Jubilee clips. There you go. I hope you've enjoyed this video. At least I've got my water sorted out, so now I can sleep a little bit easier at night. And I will see you next time. Yeah.